guys, welcome to my 23 books that I'm gonna read in 2023. This is my New Year's book resolution, if you will. I publish these so that way I am forced to keep track and keep accountable of actually reading these books. So the first order of business is to check and see how I did with last year's list. The first book on my list was Goblin Emperor. This was a meh for me. Next was Sword of Kaigen, which got 2 thumbs up. Then we have Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle. About that. Next was Rage of Dragons, which was definitely a thumbs up. Then we had Book of Jerrig. Uh-oh, I didn't get to this book. This is one that we're gonna have to mark for this year. Then I went on to Grace of Kings. That one sadly gave me a thumbs down. I did not enjoy that book. Next was Words of Radiance, got a thumbs up, Brandon Sanderson. Then I had a book by Guy Gavriel Kay, and the book I ended up choosing was The Song for Arbonne at the recommendation of Bridger from the Library Ladder. If you're interested in reading one of the Guy Gavriel Kay books, I'll link Bridger's recommendations video in the comments below. Then we finally move on to my science fiction list from last year. The first one was House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds. This one was a meh for me. Then we got on to Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. This one also I don't know how to rate because, as you already know, this was a very confusing book for me. Then we move on to The Sparrow by Mary Russell. This one was a thumbs up for me. Then we get on to Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This was a thumbs up for me. Then we get to Endymion by Dan Simmons, which is book number 3 in our Hyperion Cantos tale. Uh-oh, didn't get to this one. In my defense, I just was savoring the series and I just never got in the right mood. I don't know, gotta do better this year. The next book on this list was an Octavia Butler book, but I believe instead I ended up reading Parable of the Sower and Parable of Talents. So I did kind of a 2-for-1 sort of deal here, which I'm gonna say counts. I think it totally counts. Then we got to A Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Vinge. You guys have heard me talk about this book on my channel so far. This is definitely a thumbs up book. Then we get to Consider Fleabas by Ian M. Banks. This is the first book in the Culture series. Uh-oh, I didn't get to this book either, so I guess we're gonna have to pull that one forward also. And the next book, A Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. This is the second book in the 3 Body Problem series books, and I didn't get to it either. Uh-oh. I did, however, get to Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. I felt pretty meh on this book, probably because I had really high expectations. Then we have Dogs of War by Adrian Tchaikovsky himself. Of course, this is a thumbs up. Then we have Calculating God by Robert Sawyer, and this was a thumbs up. And finally, Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde, and this was a thumbs up. So overall, I did pretty okay. I got to all of the books except for 4 of them: Endymion, Dark Forest, Consider Fleabas, and the Book of Jerrig. So for 2023, that means that if I'm pulling forward 4, I only get 19 books, which was really hard for me. I had to cross a bunch of them off my list, but that means that I should be motivated to get these done this year. Then we want to get into the new books, the 2023 reads. So I decided to go ahead and keep the categories of divvying out science fiction and fantasy. Even though I'm mostly science fiction, I'm never going to totally give up fantasy. So I have 14 new books of sci-fi and 5 books of fantasy. The fantasy books for this year are The Forgetting Moon by Brian Durfee, The Heroes Die. I forget who this book is by, but my friend Bridger from the Library Ladder and Patrick Leo have really highly recommended this book. And then of course we have The Howling Dark by Christopher Ruccio. This is book number 2 in his series that starts with Empire of Silence. I read Empire of Silence last year, so I'm just continuing on with the series. Now I know a lot of epic fans are gonna get a little bit upset that I put it in the fantasy column, but let's be real, it is a lot of fantasy in space. I felt more comfortable putting it in the fantasy column than in the sci-fi column. We'll see if this book changes my mind. Then we have the book City of Stairs by Robert Beckett Jordan. I've heard his name be bounced around quite a bit in the fandom, and for some reason City of Stairs is a book I just keep encountering, so I'm gonna give it a chance. And then the last book on the fantasy list for 2023 is gonna be Mirror Empire by Cameron Hurley. Of course, it's Cameron Hurley. I'm gonna read everything she's ever written, and I've heard a lot of good things about this particular series from Rachel from Shades of Orange. And again, I'm gonna link her channel in the description below. So as far as the science fiction ones, we have 5 authors. The first author is China Miéville. He has quite a bit of books to choose from, and I keep hearing a lot of positive, thought-provoking things about this author, so I gotta pick up some stuff of his this year. Then we have Kurt Vonnegut. Jonathan from Words in Time has really recommended a lot of his stuff, and he really does a lot of really interesting public speeches.
Where the hell are we?
So if you haven't heard any of those, you should definitely go search his name under YouTube. He has some really cool interviews. Then we have another Octavia Butler on my list. I'm gonna, again, read everything she's ever written, so maybe I'll actually get to Dawn or one of her other books this year. Then we have C.J. Cherryh. This is an author that I had never heard of until I got a little bit deeper into science fiction booktube, and I'm not really sure why. And she's won a couple of Hugo Awards, so I hope to pick up one of her standalone novels this year. And then last but not least, another Neal Stephenson novel. I am slowly working my way through his backlist, and despite having a little bit of a rough time with me in 2022, I still am not ready to give up on him, so we'll see what the next book for him is. Then some specific books that I'm going to read is The Memory Police. I had a college roommate who does not read science fiction recommend this book to me, and now I'm incredibly curious. I've also heard it a little bit in the rumor mill in the background, so we'll see. Then there's, of course, the masterworks Lord of Light by Roger Zalansky. I don't know how to say that either. And being that 2023 is the year to read The Rendezvous with Rama. And that is, of course, because Denis Villeneuve is directing a film based off of this book. It's an Arthur C. Clarke book, it's a classic, and of course I'm gonna go see the movie, so I have to read the book first. So I am gonna prioritize this book this year. Then there's a book that I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about, and that's a book called Grass by Sherry Tepper. This is an interesting book because it takes place on an alien world that's covered in grass, but it may or may not be predatory grass. I bought this book a little while ago, and it's been on my shelf for the last couple years, and being that I kind of want to get to some of those books, this one is going to make my list this year. Then of course we have the Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. This is one of her most famous books, and while I have read quite a few of her novellas at this point, I'd really like to get into some of her novels, especially because I hear amazing things about To Say Nothing of the Dog, which is the second book in this series. Gotta read the first one though, right? Then we have Roadside Picnic by the Strugatsky brothers. This is a Russian science fiction, and it's really short. And Matt from Bookpilled has issued me a challenge that we are forever enemies if I don't read this book or don't like it. So I have to know, are we enemies or aren't we? Then we have the book Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. Kim Stanley Robinson is kind of a well-known author in the science fiction communities, but a lot of people have told me to hesitate on picking up Red Mars because it's so heavy into the science descriptions that it's hard to get the story. And I don't know that that's what I want my first impression of him to be. And somebody in the book line at one of the bookstores I frequent told me that Ministry for the Future is the book I should start with. So here's to strangers. Thanks, random dude at the bookstore. Another book that I'm gonna pick up this year is gonna be The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. I have been meaning to get to this book forever, and this year is the year. So yay. And last but not least on this list is gonna be A Mote in God's Eye by Larry Niven. And I do believe it is co-authored. All I can tell you is that this is supposed to have some really cool aliens, and a lot of y'all have been recommending that I read this book from my 6 most unique alien species video. So I plan to pick that one up and check it out and see how unique that alien species is. Well, that does it for my TBR, my 23 books for 2023, and I will see you guys next time.